For years, men have been taught to ignore uncomfortable truths and call it maturity. Today, that ends. Because a woman's past is not erased by love, promises, or good intentions. It is encoded into behavior, expectations, and emotional reflexes. And the man who refuses to look at that truth doesn't become noble. He becomes vulnerable. This video isn't about hate. It's about foresight. It's about protecting your future before it's negotiated away by hope and guilt. If you're truly ready to change your life, write in the comments, "I'm ready to change." Because once you make that decision, everything shifts. Here's the first truth every man must understand about women if he wants clarity instead of confusion. A woman's past doesn't disappear when she meets you. It stays active inside the dynamic. Niccolo Machiavelli would have warned you of this immediately. He believed human behavior is ruled less by intention than by habit. And with women, habit is not just behavioral. It's emotional, psychological, and instinctive. When you enter a relationship with a woman, you are not meeting her in isolation. You are meeting a history of emotional patterns. Every man before you has shaped how she reacts to closeness, conflict, attention, and stability. Not consciously, not maliciously, automatically. Think of a woman who has lived through repeated short-term relationships. Even if she says she wants something serious now, her nervous system has learned something else. Intensity first, detachment later. So when calm replaces excitement, her body registers danger, not peace. Friedrich Nietzsche would say that what is lived repeatedly becomes instinct, and instinct always moves faster than logic. This is why a woman may mean well, yet still pull away, compare, or sabotage when things become real. This is where men get blindsided. She doesn't sit down and decide to compare you to past men. She doesn't plan to lose emotional intensity. She doesn't consciously think, "I'm bored now." Her past relationships do the thinking for her. A comment about an ex during tension, a sudden emotional distance when stability appears, a restlessness when the relationship becomes predictable. These moments are not random. They are old emotional reflexes activating in a new man. Arthur Schopenhauer understood this deeply. Desire never erases memory. It competes with it, and memory usually wins. This is why ignoring a woman's past is dangerous. Not because it makes her bad, but because it makes you blind. The man who refuses to look at her history doesn't escape it. He becomes subject to it. Because what you don't examine will control the relationship silently. This is not about judging women. It's about understanding how women bond, detach, and repeat patterns. Love can soften behavior for a while. Attraction can delay consequences. But pressure always reveals defaults. And when pressure comes, stress, boredom, temptation, conflict, what shows up is not who she wants to be with you. It's who she has already been trained to be with men. A man who understands this doesn't panic. He doesn't argue. He doesn't hope blindly. He evaluates. And once you truly grasp that a woman's past is not gone, only dormant, one question becomes impossible to avoid. What does repeated attachment and detachment do to a woman's ability to bond long-term? That's where the real cost begins. Here is the second truth about women that most men are never taught. Repetition destroys the capacity to attach. Bonding is not infinite. It weakens with repetition. Friedrich Nietzsche warned that what is repeated without meaning slowly loses its depth. Applied to relationships, this becomes brutal. When a woman forms strong emotional bonds again and again, and watches them break, her psyche adapts. Not consciously, instinctively. At first, attachment feels intense, then familiar, then manageable, then disposable. Each separation teaches her nervous system the same lesson. Closeness does not last. Arthur Schopenhauer described love as a force driven by instinct, not romance. a mechanism of nature, not poetry. And instincts adapt. When bonding repeatedly ends in loss, the psyche learns to protect itself by shortening attachment. Desire remains, affection remains, but permanence fades. This is why a woman can feel deeply, yet detach quickly. Why intimacy can exist without loyalty. Why passion can ignite without roots. Not because she is cruel, because her inner system has learned impermanence. Niccolo Machiavelli understood this principle in power long before modern psychology. Familiarity breeds disposability. What can be gained again is never guarded the same way as what can be lost forever. Applied to women, this becomes dangerous for men who ignore it. A woman whose emotional system has bonded and broken many times does not experience stability as safety. She experiences it as silence. And silence feels empty to a nervous system trained on intensity. So when peace arrives, restlessness follows. When consistency appears, boredom creeps in. When calm replaces chaos, attraction weakens. This is where men miscalculate. They think love is enough. They think effort will override history. They think stability will heal damage created by repetition. But Nietzsche would say this is naivete, confusing intention with capacity. You cannot love a woman into bonding deeper than her nervous system allows. You cannot commitment your way past conditioning. You cannot argue biology with morality. This is why some women leave good men without clear reasons. Why affection exists right up until withdrawal. Why endings feel sudden, but were neurologically prepared long before. The mistake men make is asking, why did she change? She didn't. She repeated. And once bonding weakens, something else takes its place: comparison. That is where the real danger begins. Here's the third truth. You're not competing with men, you're competing with memory. This is where most men completely misread their situation with women. They think attraction is happening in real time. They think they're being judged only on who they are now. They think effort, patience, and consistency will eventually win. That assumption is fatal, because when you enter a woman's life, you don't enter alone. You walk into a room already occupied by memories. Nietzsche warned that memory is not passive. It is selective, emotional, and distorted by intensity. The past is never remembered accurately. It is remembered sensationally. Peaks are preserved. Lows are erased. What remains is not truth, it's impact. This is why a woman rarely compares you fairly. She compares how you make her feel now to how she once felt at the most intense moment of the past. You are not competing with her ex as he truly was. You are competing with a highlight reel. A man she remembers as exciting may have been unstable. A relationship she recalls as passionate may have been destructive. But memory doesn't preserve dysfunction. It preserves dopamine. Schopenhauer understood this mechanism deeply. He saw desire as repetition-seeking, not fulfillment-seeking. The mind chases what once stimulated it most strongly, even if it caused pain. Especially if it caused pain. This is why some women sabotage healthy dynamics. Why peace feels off. Why stability feels dull. Why they say they want calm, but respond to chaos. And here's the silent trap for men. You try to outperform ghosts. You try to be better, kinder, more reliable. But reliability doesn't compete with remembered intensity. Machiavelli would say, this is the mistake of fighting the wrong battlefield. Power is not about opposing force. It's about understanding perception. And perception is shaped by memory, not logic. So when a woman withdraws, questions the relationship, or grows restless without clear cause, it's rarely about something you did. It's about what her nervous system remembers as alive. You didn't lose because you failed. You lost because you were compared to a sensation, not a man. And the more unresolved history she carries, the longer that list of invisible competitors becomes. This is why men feel confused, drained, and destabilized. They sense resistance but can't name it. They feel judged but never told why. Because you're not being measured against reality. You're being measured against memory. And memory doesn't negotiate. But memory does something else. It carries pain forward. That's where projection enters. Here's the fourth truth about women most men sense instinctively but are trained to ignore. Her trauma doesn't disappear, it transfers. Pain doesn't reset when a relationship ends. It relocates. Friedrich Nietzsche wrote that unresolved suffering does not fade. It seeks expression. When a wound isn't understood, it looks for a new surface to open on. In relationships, that surface is often the next man. So when a woman has been betrayed, lied to, abandoned, or emotionally neglected, her nervous system learns a pattern. Anticipate harm. Even when no harm is present, you arrive clean, but you are treated guilty. This is not conscious. It is defensive instinct. Arthur Schopenhauer saw this clearly. Humans project inner pain outward because it is easier to accuse the world than confront the self. A woman who hasn't processed past trauma doesn't meet you as you are. She meets you as a risk. That's how you inherit punishments for crimes you didn't commit. If she was cheated on, your independence becomes suspicious. If she was controlled, your boundaries feel cold. If she was used for sex, your desire feels selfish. If she was abandoned, your silence feels like rejection. You're not responding to her. You're responding to her history. Machiavelli warned rulers never to ignore the resentments people carry forward. Old injuries don't stay buried. They wait. And when triggered, they strike without warning. In relationships, this means one thing for men. You are not evaluated only on your actions. You are evaluated through the filter of her past pain. This is why arguments escalate quickly. Why small misunderstandings become accusations. Why reassurance never seems to be enough. You think you're building trust. She thinks she's preventing catastrophe. And here's the trap. Men believe patience will heal this. They believe love will soften fear. They believe consistency will undo damage. But Nietzsche would call this moral optimism, mistaking endurance for wisdom. You cannot soothe trauma you didn't create. You cannot argue with a nervous system trained by pain. And you cannot sacrifice yourself into being safe enough. Because trauma doesn't ask for logic. It demands control. And the more you try to prove yourself, the more power you hand over. Not to her, but to the past controlling her reactions. This is why men slowly disappear inside these dynamics. They become cautious. They over-explain. They walk on glass. And eventually, they mistake survival for love. But trauma doesn't reward sacrifice. It consumes it. Which leads to the next illusion men are sold. That experience equals maturity. It doesn't. Here's the fifth truth. Experience does not create stability. It erodes it. This is where the biggest lie about women quietly destroys men. You're told that experience makes her wiser. That her past made her know what she wants. That everything she lived prepared her to finally choose well. That sounds comforting. It's also false. Experience does not automatically produce depth. It produces adaptation. When a woman repeats cycles of desire, excitement, rupture, and detachment, her emotional system doesn't mature. It economizes. It learns how to feel less in order to survive more. Stability stops feeling like safety. It starts feeling like absence. This is why some women say they want peace, yet feel restless inside it. Why consistency feels nice, but not compelling. Why calm men feel correct, but not chosen. Her nervous system has been trained on intensity, not continuity. Each high rewires expectations upward. Each breakup lowers tolerance for discomfort. Each new beginning shortens patience. So when you show up steady, present, and reliable, You're not meeting a blank slate. You're meeting a system calibrated for stimulation. And here's the brutal contrast men miss. A woman with little emotional fragmentation bonds into stability. A woman with extensive emotional repetition evaluates stability against excitement, not morally, neurologically. This is why boredom appears early, why she starts questioning chemistry, why she wonders if something is missing, even when nothing is wrong. Men interpret this as a failure of effort. They try harder, they give more, they intensify. But intensity doesn't repair overstimulation, it reinforces it. What she learned through repetition is not commitment, it's replacement. So when something feels off, her instinct isn't to build, it's to scan. New option, new feeling, new possibility. And this is where men lose themselves. They believe patience will turn experience into loyalty. But experience, when unchecked, trains exit routes, not roots. Which leads to the most expensive mistake a man can make: ignoring patterns. And here's the sixth truth. Ignoring patterns is the most expensive choice a man makes. This is where everything converges. For men dealing with women, this is the point of no return. Patterns are not opinions. They are predictions. Machiavelli warned that the greatest danger is not the enemy you see, but the reality you refuse to acknowledge. In relationships, that reality is simple. Past behavior reveals future cost. A woman's history is not a story, it is a trajectory. If her past shows repeated exits, unstable bonds, unresolved conflict, and constant novelty seeking, that is not growth in progress. That is a direction already in motion, and stepping into that path does not pause it, it enrolls you. Men ignore patterns because hope feels noble, because walking away feels cruel, because society punishes men who choose self-preservation. Nietzsche would call this weakness disguised as virtue, mistaking endurance for strength, sacrifice for meaning. When you ignore patterns, three things happen quietly. First, your mind fractures. You begin explaining what shouldn't need explaining. You doubt instincts that were right from the start. You normalize anxiety and call it love. Second, your resources drain. Time, energy, focus, money. You invest into stabilizing something that was never designed to stabilize. Third, and this is the most dangerous, your mission collapses. Instead of building, you manage. Instead of leading, you react. Instead of moving forward, you circle her past endlessly. Schopenhauer believed that suffering intensifies when we attach ourselves to illusions we refuse to abandon. Loving someone while denying who they've shown themselves to be is the purest form of self-inflicted pain. And here is the line men must finally cross. You are not obligated to carry what you did not create. You are not weak for choosing peace. You are not insecure for protecting your future. A woman's past will only destroy your future if you pretend it doesn't exist. Once you see patterns clearly, the spell breaks. You stop arguing with reality. You stop competing with memory. You stop bleeding for ghosts. That is not bitterness. That is discernment. And discernment is the difference between a man who survives relationships and a man who leads his life. Here's the final truth that ties everything together. A woman's past is not something you judge. It is something you understand. Machiavelli would remind you that power begins with clarity, not hope. Nietzsche would warn you that denying reality is how strong men decay from the inside. Schopenhauer would tell you that most suffering comes from loving illusions instead of truth. This was never about attacking women. It was about protecting your future. When you ignore patterns, you gamble your time, your peace, your mission. When you see clearly, you regain control. Choose with awareness. Lead with standards. Walk away without guilt when the cost is too high. Because a man who respects himself does not build his life on someone else's unresolved past. That is not fear. That is wisdom. If this opened your eyes and you're serious about becoming the man who's in full control of his life, my book is now available. The Undeniable Man, Built to be Chosen. It's a strategic guide for men who want to attract, lead, and dominate in their love life and beyond. Whether you're single or in a relationship, no fluff, no tricks, just pure, powerful strategy that will set you apart from 99% of men, and that you will actually use every day. The link is in the description. And if this video spoke to you, don't just keep your thoughts in your head. Write a comment, even just a few words. It helps you remember these lessons, and it might help someone else too. Hit the like button if you enjoyed this content, and share it with someone who, in your eyes, needs it right now. Just trust your instinct. We're all trying to get clearer, more solid inside. So let's build minds that don't break.